I think he's smug. I think he's arrogant. I'll give it a D as in dumb, as in dud. I don't like him. I don't like the way he comes across. I don't like the way he treated Baker. I don't like the way he handled Shedeur. I think he thinks he's always the smartest guy in the building and in the locker room.
Arthur Blank is reportedly furious, and not quietly furious. Building, boiling, closed door furious. Because the man he trusted to lead the Atlanta Falcons into the future is already trying to rewrite it. Kevin Stefanski hasn't even settled into the building, and now reports say he's pushing to bring in a new quarterback, not to compete with Michael Penix Jr., but to shift the entire direction of the franchise. And here's the problem. Atlanta didn't hire Stefanski to tear the blueprint up. They hired him to build around it. So why does this already feel like Cleveland all over again? This isn't a quiet disagreement. This is ownership-level anger.
Finalized the deal to hire Kevin Stefanski as their new head coach. The two-time NFL Coach of the Year flew to Atlanta today. And now they're still undertaking Falcons head coaching job. Now, I read that he invited him over to his home for dinner.
Arthur Blank didn't invest years rebuilding the Atlanta Falcons just to watch the vision get challenged before kickoff. And yet, here we are. Reports say he's furious behind closed doors. Not confused, not concerned, furious. Why? Because the coach he just trusted with the future, Kevin Stefanski, is already pushing to pivot away from Michael Penix Jr. That's not a small suggestion. That's a philosophical earthquake.
And it wasn't just like straight to football. You know, he wanted to get to know me as a person, so that was really good.
And then the second meeting was like, let's talk ball?
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Have you sat with him yet?
It was quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. You know, he was in and out of the building. Obviously, you know, he still has his family, you know, back in Cleveland and stuff like that. So he's been trying to settle in.
Atlanta drafted Penix to be the future, the face, the centerpiece. You don't make that move unless you're ready to build around him. But Stefanski reportedly wants another quarterback in the building, and not the harmless veteran backup type. This feels directional. Ownership doesn't like surprises, especially not at quarterback.
Okay. Get all the tough questions, I come in and get the easy ones.
How's it going for you, man?
Good. You know, I'm drinking out of the fire hose, as you do as a new head coach, and a lot of this early in this process is putting a coaching staff together. So I feel very, very strongly about the group we've put together. We're almost done. I got one more hire to make, and then
Blank built this roster with intent, young talent, offensive weapons, energy, culture, and now the tension inside the building is real, thick, unavoidable. This isn't about play calling, it's about control. And if the owner and the head coach aren't aligned on the most important position in football, that's how franchises split in half. Let's slow this down. Stefanski isn't reportedly asking for competition. Competition is normal. Competition is healthy. This feels different. The buzz suggests he wants a new quarterback who could realistically redirect the franchise. That changes everything. Because once you even hint at replacing your young starter before he's had a real runway, you send a message to the locker room. Do you believe in him or not?
I think Stefanski should have had to go back as a coordinator somewhere, and then if he got another chance, then sure, great. I would have rather had him keep Raheem and hire Stefanski as offensive coordinator. I hate to give it a D, but it's got to be a D just based on you're getting rid of a guy with a better record than the guy you're hiring.
Michael Penix Jr. hasn't even had the full opportunity to establish himself, and already there's noise about moving off the plan. That blindsided people in the building. Coaches expect alignment. Front offices expect patience. Instead, this feels like early instability. And here's the dangerous part. Quarterbacks don't develop in chaos. They develop in clarity, structure, belief.
I think the Falcons, they're not going to say this publicly because it expresses some, amount of uncertainty to the fan base, but I think the reality of the situation is that they just don't know exactly, while they want to praise and be complimentary of all Penix's tools, which are legitimate. They're not lying about it.
If Penix senses doubt from the top, that leaks. It spreads. The Falcons didn't hire Stefanski to reboot the blueprint. They hired him to execute it, to elevate what was already in motion. So why does it already feel like the foundation is being questioned? Because once you flirt with replacing your franchise quarterback, even in conversation, you've already created a fracture. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Kevin Stefanski's history at quarterback. In roughly 6 seasons, Cleveland cycled through 13 different starters. 13! That's not stability, that's survival mode. Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, and others in between. That kind of turnover raises real questions. Was it bad luck? Injuries? Front office pressure? Or was it development? Because when you go through that many quarterbacks, one of 2 things is true. Either the roster never had the right guy, or the system never fully supported one. That's why this Atlanta situation feels heavier than a simple disagreement. Atlanta is young, talented, built around upside. This is not a roster screaming for a reset. It's a roster asking for growth. So when Stefanski starts leaning toward another quarterback, fans remember Cleveland. They remember instability. They remember constant resets. And here's the legacy question forming in real time. Is this coach misunderstood, or is this a pattern repeating itself in a new city? Before this tension exploded, one voice already sounded the alarm: Cam Newton. Cam didn't hedge it. He didn't soften it. When Atlanta hired Kevin Stefanski, he immediately questioned the fit, especially after what allegedly happened with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. Cam's point wasn't just about X's and O's, it was about opportunity, about belief, about who gets patience in this league and who doesn't. He argued that Shedeur never truly got a fair runway, that narratives were shaped early, that once doubt creeps from the top, it becomes almost impossible for a young quarterback to fight through it. And now Atlanta fans are watching similar energy surround Michael Penix Jr. That's why Cam's comments hit harder today. At the time, some brushed it off as emotion. Now it feels predictive. If you mishandle one young quarterback, people question judgment. If it happens again, that's not a coincidence. That's the pattern. And the Falcons can't afford to ignore that conversation. Not in this city, not with this roster, not at this moment. The Shedeur situation is the ghost in the room. When Cleveland moved the way they did, critics said talent wasn't the issue. They said timing wasn't the issue. They said belief was the issue. The narrative formed quickly. Was Shedeur given a real chance, or was he already labeled before he stepped fully into the role? That's the debate.
And whether you agree or not, perception matters in the NFL, especially at quarterback. Once a player is viewed as temporary, development stalls. The locker room senses it, the fan base senses it, the media amplifies it. Now shift that lens to Atlanta. If Penix feels like a placeholder instead of the future, what message does that send? To him? To Drake London? To Kyle Pitts? To a young locker room built on growth? Quarterbacks need confidence from the top, publicly, privately, consistently. If Shedeur became Exhibit A in a failed developmental trust exercise, Atlanta cannot let Penix become Exhibit B, because once young quarterbacks lose organizational belief, careers don't just stall, they derail. This isn't just football strategy, this is identity. The Atlanta Falcons are building something young, explosive, culturally connected, a roster that reflects the energy of the city. Atlanta isn't neutral ground. It's passionate, loud, proud. It embraces its stars. Michael Penix Jr. represents that future. So does Drake London. So does Kyle Pitts. This is a core meant to grow together. So when a new coach walks in and reportedly signals hesitation about the quarterback, it clashes with the direction ownership sold to the fan base. Arthur Blank didn't rebuild this team to reset it again. The philosophical gap is what's dangerous. Does Stefanski want a controlled system-first quarterback, or is he willing to adapt to the strengths of the player already drafted as the future? Because if the coach's blueprint doesn't match the roster's identity, tension becomes inevitable. And in the NFL, philosophical misalignment between ownership and head coach rarely ends quietly. It ends with someone leaving. This is where it gets serious. Arthur Blank has options. None of them are small. He can publicly and privately reinforce that Penix is the guy, full stop. That would send clarity through the building. It would draw a line in the sand. He can force Stefanski to commit to development instead of replacement. Or if this divide grows, he can decide the coach isn't aligned with the franchise's long-term vision. Because make no mistake, quarterback decisions define eras. If Michael Penix Jr. thrives, all this tension fades into background noise. It becomes an off-season headline nobody remembers. Winning fixes everything in the NFL. But if he struggles while instability surrounds him, that's not bad luck. That's organizational failure at the highest level, and everyone will know it. Quarterbacks don't develop in chaos. They develop in stability, structure, and belief. If doubt exists behind closed doors, it eventually reaches the locker room. Teammates feel it. Veterans sense it. Once players question whether leadership truly believes in the quarterback, cracks begin forming inside the foundation. Right now, the locker room is watching closely. The fan base is analyzing every rumor. The league is observing how Atlanta handles this moment. Coaches need authority to run their system, but franchise quarterbacks need visible commitment. When those priorities collide, ownership must decide which path defines the future. Arthur Blank drafted Penix to lead the next era of the Atlanta Falcons. He didn't invest in youth just to second-guess it months later. This isn't about one practice report. It's about whether the organization truly believes in the direction it already chose. For Kevin Stefanski, this moment shapes legacy. Cleveland cycled through quarterbacks without lasting stability. The turnover raised questions about development and commitment. Was it poor roster construction or a lack of long-term belief in one passer? Atlanta now becomes the answer to that debate. If Michael Penix Jr. thrives in a stable environment, Stefanski's reputation changes instantly. He becomes the coach who corrected past instability. But if doubt lingers and another quarterback carousel begins, critics won't call it coincidence. They'll call it a pattern. And patterns follow coaches longer than single losing seasons ever do. Penix represents more than potential. He represents patience. Young quarterbacks need time, clarity, and public backing. Once hesitation appears from leadership, confidence can erode quickly. Development stalls, growth slows. The damage isn't always visible immediately, but it compounds over seasons and reshapes careers. Arthur Blank didn't reshape the Atlanta Falcons to fall back into instability. He invested in youth, speed, and long-term upside. That vision centered on drafting and developing a franchise quarterback. Now the organization faces its defining decision: fully back the quarterback you selected or shift towards a coach's alternative. There is no safe middle ground. If Atlanta miscalculates, the consequences go beyond one disappointing season. Development years vanish quickly in the NFL. Confidence erodes, timelines reset, and at quarterback, resets are costly. If this spirals into another Cleveland-style turnover and doubt, the fallout won't be subtle. It will shape reputations, careers, and the direction of the franchise for years to come.